We made it. We made it. Not only is the Southside Beat on time today, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, but it is draft day. Finally, it's here. The speculation will be over to a certain extent, but at least for the first round. After tonight's first round is done, the speculation's over. Man, I'm so excited. It's the best day. It's the best 3 days of the NFL offseason. Definitely one of my favorite times of the year for sure. All of the work that has been put in by obviously the teams, but obviously also by the media. All the work that we've done and looking at breaking down and providing as much coverage of all of these prospects, the prospects that really matter to the Steelers here, obviously on this show and at DKPittsburghSports.com. All the work that we've done, you know, the coverage that we've provided at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, even the NFL annual meeting. I know that's not directly draft related, but there's still answers that we can get that, you know, kind of help, you know, paint pictures and information that we can get to provide intel on what's going on with the draft, man. All of that work, man, it's finally coming to fruition tonight. So excited about it. So excited that you guys are here to talk. Started on time today, so we can really try to push this to the max when it comes to the length of the show. We can try to do that. Joshua here saying, I'm cheering for the end of speculation. I agree. That didn't stop me from kind of going against my better judgment and going ahead and doing an official mock draft, which I really went back and forth on whether I even wanted to do one. Jackie here says, hit that like button. Absolutely, man. Right now, 64 people in. Show just started. I can't see what it is on YouTube right now. I'm going through different, this isn't being directly streamed on YouTube. So, man, if there better be 64 likes right there, man. That's all I'm saying. No, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. Obviously, it's a huge day. It's a huge night. There are a lot of different directions. The one thing that's really standing out to me, and I obviously been reading around and seeing all the mock drafts that have been released today. It does seem like that there is a pretty big consensus for what the Steelers are going to do. It's not a full consensus, but I am seeing a lot of Graham Barton being the pick. I don't know if that actually ends up happening. That is my official spoiler alert. That is my official prediction is Graham Barton. And I understand that a lot of you might be like, hey, whoa, you've been talking so much about tackle. Why in the heck didn't you say the Steelers are going to get a tackle? Well, go read the mock draft. You'll see how I have the draft mocking, at least, or how I have it falling. And you would see why. You know, there might be one spot area that I have laid out, but I don't see that happening. I see a team that's got a little bit more draft capital to dangle, being able to trade up and get in front of the Steelers. So I stand by what I've been reporting that tackle's the priority in the first round. And if there's a way that the Steelers can get one of those maybe 5 or 6 guys, that they're going to do it. I just don't know if that's going to happen. As I was continuing to go through this, and really, as I was doing the mock draft, I wasn't reading like other people's mock drafts and like, oh, well, you know, Daniel Jeremiah says this, or Dane Brugler says that, or Pro Football Focus says this, or whatever. I'm not focused on what other guys are mocking. I was trying to read information from guys who cover those teams and who probably know a little bit more information than, you know, guys who are trying to spread a wealth of knowledge over 32 teams instead of, you know, people like myself or anybody else who cover one team and try to read what those guys are saying about those teams. And so therefore I, you know, applied it, and I don't see tackle working out unless the Steelers make a very aggressive trade up. Maybe even beyond the sweet spot that I said. Now, again, you don't know how the draft is going to fall. There could be one trade that changes everything. That's why the Steelers and Omar Khan talked about. That's why they've gone over all of as many scenarios as they possibly can. Now, they have their board built for the 20 best players, and that's what Mike Tomlin said, best players, not the players that they think they're going to have access to. Like, no, they've got the 20 best players, and they have them ranked. That would mean that Caleb Williams is on that list. That would mean Marvin Harrison Jr. is on that list. And obviously, the Steelers know that those guys aren't going to fall to 20. Those guys aren't going to fall out of the top 10. It's just, you have to do all of your homework and also kind of set thresholds and comfort levels for, okay, we really like this guy. And the one guy I've been harping on is Talisi Fuaga, the right tackle out of Oregon State. I know they love him. How much do they love him? Do they love him enough to trade up to 15, to 14, to 12? I would like to think that, or just based off of logic, that it's probably going to have to be an aggressive trade up if you're going to get a guy like Fuaga. Joshua says they will shock us and take Penix. Yeah, I can go ahead and say with certainty, and I think there was a mock draft out there or somebody made a prediction that the Steelers were going to take a quarterback. That's not happening, and I will gladly let anybody take this video, tweet it out, and tag Old Takes Exposed if the Steelers end up taking a quarterback in the first round tonight. That's not happening. So I can almost guarantee that. That's not really inside information. That's just, it doesn't make any sense. That would be the only way they would somehow take a quarterback is if they somehow magically were gifted one of the top 3 picks and they could get one of Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels, but that's not happening. So, yeah, I based off of what I think is going, and see what Dylan Smith here says here, and this is kind of what I painted out in my mock draft. It says, could the trade up to 12 with Denver be possible? The report said it was for Mitchell. I don't believe a trade up with Denver is for Mitchell. I think if the Steelers are trading up to 12, that it's to get a tackle, that they really love. I don't think a guy such as Fuaga gets past the Saints at 14. I am almost certain that the Titans would take a tackle. They'd probably be happy with any of Joe Alt, Olufushanu, JC Latham, or Talisi Fuaga. I think they'd be fine with any one of those 4. I think that the Titans are also in a position to possibly even trade down and get some extra capital if one of those tackles is still within their range. I think the Chargers are in the market for a tackle. The Bears could turn around at 9 and decide we want to protect Caleb Williams, and they might want to get Fashanu or Latham or Fuaga or any of those guys. They might want to protect. They want to protect Caleb Williams. That could be the move that they make. They could also go after a playmaker. They could get, Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors or whichever receivers there. Then that paves the way for the Jets to possibly take it. I just think there are too many teams that could really use a tackle. And then not just like, oh, it's a luxury. Like, no, they've got a need and they kind of need to address tackle. And it might actually be their best option with where they are on the draft board. And so, to Dylan's point, trading up to 12 might really be the way to go if you want to get one of those top 5 tackles. The problem is that the Steelers don't necessarily have the draft capital to make that trade. I mean, they can, in theory, they could trade away their 2nd round pick, but I think that's going from 12 all the way to 84 without making any picks seems very counterproductive just to get a tackle when there could be other really good players on the board at 20. I don't see that happening. I actually do have in my mock draft the Broncos trading back from 12, but I have them doing it with the Eagles. Number one, the Broncos could find a way the Broncos could find a way to trade back and get a second-round pick because right now they don't have one. So, and lo and behold, the Eagles have a pick at 50 and 53. So they've got an extra later second-round pick that they can just use to their advantage and be able to go up and get a guy that they want. And knowing the Eagles' history, knowing how much they emphasize the trenches, it makes a lot of sense that if they were to trade up, it would be for a tackle. I also know for a fact that at least as it pertains to the Steelers, the Eagles would really, really like to get in front of the Steelers because they are afraid the Steelers will take a tackle or cornerback that the Eagles want. So I actually had the Eagles trading way up, not only getting in front of the Steelers, but also getting in front of the Bengals and getting in front of the Saints by making sure, hey, we're going to get the tackle that we want. And I think Fuaga would be a really good selection for them, especially with Lane Johnson getting near the end of his career. So that is what I went with in terms of that. I find that if the Broncos have both the Steelers and the Eagles calling, I really, really think I don't know if Omar Khan's willing to part with 51 to get that. But I think it would be more likely that the Eagles make that trade because they have the extra capital to kind of play with to make that happen. So that's what I ended up having. And that's why I think just with the way everything is going to shake out, I find it difficult to for the Steelers to try to trade up and get a tackle, unless for whatever reason the tackles don't go early, and they do kind of fall. Like whenever we've mocked on here, if there's still 2 or 3 of them available, of like those top 5 guys, whenever that like the Colts get on the board at 15, you better be calling and doing everything you can to possibly trade up to possibly get one of those guys. That could be, and the Colts are, a trade down candidate too. They could trade back. They could get a receiver. They could get a corner. They could get, there's a few different ways the Colts could go. Same thing with the Seahawks. The Seahawks could possibly trade down. The Jaguars could possibly trade down. Like those are 3 teams that I could see the Steelers really trading up with. The problem is that I think all the tackles that they might want to get by the time they get to 15 might be gone. So based off of that, I had Graham Barton going at 20 to the Steelers in my mock draft, because if the tackles are all gone and tackle doesn't work out, I would think center is going to be either at the top of the list of priorities or very, very close with like cornerback or receiver. And I think at 20, if you were to weigh between Cooper DeJean, Graham Barton, let's see, receiver Brian Thomas Jr. would be there. That'd be a difficult decision, but I really do think the Steelers are going to put an emphasis on the trenches. It's what makes sense to me. And Stephen A here asked this, it's like, you think if the tackles are gone, we should shift, or that we would shift to Cooper DeJean. It's very possible. I do think that Cooper DeJean would be a heck of a pick. And I would think the tackles would have to be gone, like those 5 tackles. And then probably also Graham Barton. Like if the Cowboys traded up and to get in front of the Steelers and took Graham Barton, then yes, I would say Cooper DeJean would be the pick. If it's between Cooper DeJean or Amarius Mims, I'm taking DeJean. To me, he's a playmaker. He immediately makes the defense better. Does not matter where he plays, and he already makes the defense better. Dude's a playmaker. He will help take the ball away, and he'll help in the return game. A guy who can play multiple positions. He can play outside. He can play inside. He can play safety. And I just going over all of the different scenarios, and because in my mock draft, I think I had like 3 trades. I want to say, I think I had 3 trades. I think I had the Titans moving up 2 spots from 7 to 5 to get Joe Alt. And then the Chargers taking J.C. Latham when they moved back 2 spots. And then I had the Eagles trading up 10 spots to 12. And then I had the Cardinals trading up 4 spots with the Vikings. I think those are the 3 trades I make. There's a very good possibility, and Spice Creations here says it here, something crazy is going to happen. The draft never goes as people think. That's true. Like anytime like I do a mock draft, I'm like, there's no way I'm going 32 for 32 here. There's a really good chance I get the first 4 picks right. And then the Chargers are the big wild card in this draft at fifth overall. They could take a guy. They could move back and get an offensive lineman, get a tackle. Who knows what they're going to do? And I think they're the wild card here. And so it's true, man. Like, who knows what's going to happen here? For all we know, maybe the Steelers don't make a pick tonight because they somehow landed a trade with the Niners to get Brandon Aiyuk. Like, I don't know. I really have no idea. And I think there's always that element of surprise, but I think that's even more so in this draft. There just seems to be a lot of players that teams want that are not in their range. Or there seems to be teams that are way up higher on the draft board for what they really need. And so they could probably be best served trading back. And the teams that really want players that are going to have to move up. So I don't think I should say I do think that tonight is going to be, it's going to be one of those nights where, if you are one of the type of fans that are like, oh, the Steelers are picking at 20. Okay, I don't have to worry about tuning in for probably at least an hour after it starts. No, you better be tuning in right away. Just in case. Who knows that this is going to be one of those years in which the Steelers make a gigantic trade up. You never know. Chris Lynn asked a good question. Is Aiyuk worth the first like Minkah was worth the first? I would personally. If it's a straight up trade, 20 for Brandon Aiyuk, I would do that in a heartbeat. That's what I would do. And here's the main reason why. Could Brian Thomas Jr. turn into a better receiver? It's possible. Could Adonai Mitchell turn into a better receiver? It's possible. Could, Ladd McConkey or any of these other receivers that are kind of, you have the top 3 guys, right? You have Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, and Malik Neighbors. Like, those are the 3 consensus top receivers. They're going to be gone top 10, top 12. And then there's the second tier, which, you have Brian Thomas Jr., you got Adonai Mitchell, you got those guys. And a lot of those picks, a lot of those receivers could become a better receiver than Brandon Aiyuk. But you can never just expect a prospect to turn into a dude. You just can't. Even first overall picks are busts more often than you would think they would be. Second overall picks, third, like, it doesn't matter. Like, a prospect is never guaranteed. There is a body of work of NFL film of Brandon Aiyuk and everything that he can do. It's a more sure thing. And in today's day and age, with the emphasis the Steelers have on, we're tired of not getting to the playoffs, or we're tired of not winning playoff games. The urgency is pumped up, and that is whenever, if you can get a sure thing and it's an impact player, I would much rather spend a 20th pick and have to spend some money to get a sure thing, or as close to a sure thing as you can get in Brandon Aiyuk, than have to spend that on Brian Thomas Jr. or A.D. Mitchell or any of those guys. So I would do it and then like anything else, like when people are like, oh, well, what if it's like you trade back 11 spots, you trade 20 and you get 31. That's it. That's like, you say thank you, John Lynch, and you just move on with your day. You don't give away any draft picks. I think that if you get Brandon Aiyuk, you have to give away draft picks. So that to me is it. Again, if the tackles are all gone and Graham Barton's gone, and John Lynch calls and he says, we're not making an extension, or we're not getting an extension with Brandon, how about the 20th pick for Brandon? Straight up. And if I'm Omar Khan, I don't get off the phone until we get everything official. That would be. And Joshua says it here, and this is the other side of that coin. If it wasn't for our obvious needs on the offensive line, I'd be all about Aiyuk at 20. The thing is that it's still about best player available. If Talisa Fuaga for whatever reason falls to 20, I'm I'm more inclined to take the tackle. Or if JC Latham or any of those guys, I might be more inclined to take the tackle. Might be. I don't know. If somebody's dangling Brandon Aiyuk for 20 and that's it, I still might want to take Brandon Aiyuk because, again, it's an NFL player. You have it's a lot closer to a sure thing. There's no guarantee that Fuaga or Latham or any of these tackles actually live up to what they're supposed to be. You just never know. So that's the one, like, whenever we've gone back and we've looked at all these draft classes here in recent seasons or in recent years for the Steelers, like the three best uses since 2017 of a first round pick have been Najee Harris, which I mean, lived up to the hype of a first round pick. I don't know, but it's not a bust. Dude's got 3 1,000-yard seasons. Like, it's not a bust at all. To me, it's a solid pick. It's not a great pick, but it's a solid pick. So Najee Harris, TJ Watt's the obvious slam dunk because, I mean, he might already be the greatest pass rusher in Steelers history. And then after that, what's the next best use of a first round pick since 2017? Now, I'm not counting Broderick Jones because we have 1 year. Sorry, I'm not basing this off of 1 year. The next best pick of a first round pick since 2017 is trading it to get Minka. That really is the best use of a first round pick. And so that's why I'm like, if you can get a sure thing or as close to a sure thing as possible, and Brandon Aiyuk can get separation. He's great at getting separation. He's a phenomenal blocker. He would be an immediate upgrade to the offense. Does not matter if the Steelers want to be a run first offense. Immediate upgrade. And if in a couple years George Pickens says bye-bye in free agency, it's not the end of the world because you just spent a gigantic contract on Brandon Aiyuk. So, yeah, to me, if it's 20 for Aiyuk, and like, I would have a hard time passing that up. That's me personally, but it might not happen because, listen, the 49ers might be John Lynch might not be spewing any BS whenever he says we have no intention. Our preference is to keep Brandon here, is to keep him a 49er. Okay, well, then it happens. And that's what I'm inclined to believe. But again, you never know. You never know. But whenever you talk about that, if that ends up happening, you got to figure out ways to address center, to address tackle. You could always trade up in the second round, possibly if Zach Frazier's there. There are a few guys in the third round range that are very interesting to me. Mason McCormick is one. Hunter Norzad is another. I think those two guys, man, are if the Steelers don't address center in the first round, I really do think that two guys that are worth watching near the end of day 2, maybe the very beginning of day 3. I don't think McCormick lasts out of day 2. I don't think he's still on the board come Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. But Mason McCormick out of South Dakota State and then Hunter Norzad out of Penn State. Those are the two guys that would be center candidates if the Steelers don't get like Graham Barton or Zach Frazier in the first 2 rounds, or Jackson Powers Johnson. So, then Travis says Ramon Foster told me yesterday, center would be his first pick. Hey, listen, if it's down to, if you have your way, I would personally still go tackle, but center is not it's a need. They the one thing about tackle is that they have 2 starters right now. They have Broderick Jones. They have Dan Moore. They have 2 starters. They do not have a starter at center right now. And so it is a bigger need right now. There's no doubt about that. I'm not arguing that whatsoever. But when you're talking about the best use of draft picks, if you have an opportunity to get a tackle that could become something really, really special, or something that really solidifies the ends of your offensive line, I have a hard time. Go look at some of the contracts for these tackles and what they're getting paid. Even the guys who are like, bottom of the top 10 or top 15, those contracts will make you sweat. If you're telling me that if they can get an opportunity to get Fuaga or Latham or any of those guys, and they can have Broderick Jones and said right tackle in this draft, the next 3 seasons are the most cost-effective tackles, maybe even in the league. Like, yeah. But center is and listen, I like my official prediction based off of my mock draft is Graham Barton. Like, just because I don't know if tackle will work out. I know I know the Steelers want tackle to work out. I don't know if it actually does. Just because you want something doesn't mean it does. So I have Graham Barton being the guy in the first round, and I think that's a heck of a pick. I know some people are concerned about, the fact that he's played only left tackle for the past 3 seasons, and that in his college career, he's gotten only 430 snaps at center. And that was as a freshman in 2020. Like that's not a ton of experience at center, but he can play the position. It's not foreign to him. And the dude, it might be the most athletic offensive lineman in the entire draft. Dude is super athletic, man. So I would have a hard time passing on him unless John Lynch is literally calling saying 20th pick for Aiyuk straight up. I have a hard time passing on Graham Barton if he's there at 20, especially if all the tackles that you would want are gone. I think I even had, like in my mock draft, I think I had 6 tackles off the board by the time the Steelers got on the clock. So to me, Graham Barton was the slam dunk pick. And Joshua says it here, says, Aiyuk at 20, trade up for Frazier or Powers Johnson in the second, and then just live with whatever at tackle. But the thing is that there are 3rd round guys that are, possible options. Blake Fisher out of Notre Dame, possible option. Goncalves out of Pitt, a little bit later, maybe early 4th, late 3rd, that's a decent guy at that range. Who knows what's going to happen with him. It's not like there aren't options later in the draft. It's not like you have to get one of those top 5 or 6 tackles or you can't get one. Like, no, there are some. It's just not obviously it's not nearly as sure of a thing. And Teresa says, the dude from Yale, yeah, he's pretty good too. There are options in the 2nd round and the 3rd round. It's just. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not seeing this in the comments, but somebody says Green is definitely no Barton. I would assume that's Kendrick Green. That still gives me PTSD. Yeah, no, this is not. Graham Barton is. No, it's not another Kendrick Green situation whatsoever. Yeah, it's not. I would be shocked if that pick, if they were to take Graham Barton and that it tanked as much as Kendrick Green did. I have very little reason to believe that would happen. But then again, you never know. Kind of to that point, you never know. Let's see. Anybody got any questions? I mean, we can speculate here all we want, but we're nearly at the 30-minute mark of the show. Does anybody have any questions that you want to ask? We are just really quick. We're not doing a watch party tonight. I'm sorry to disappoint. DK is going to be on the south side. I'm going to be doing everything I can to be helping out as much as possible from 1,200 miles away. But however I can be of service, that's what I'm going to be doing. So right now the plan would just be, we're going to be on here tomorrow. We'll obviously I don't want to say recap, but we'll look back on what the Steelers did. We'll look back on whether who the pick is, if they make a pick, if they trade, whatever happens. So really interesting time. I love it. I love it so much. I love the NFL draft. Getting questions. How's the house sale going? I mean, it's not on the market yet. We've been fighting with insurance about getting the roof replaced on the house. We have to get it replaced before we put it on the market. It's been terrible so far, but it's a nightmare. But trying to sell a house is a nightmare, especially whenever interest rates are through the roof. So, but right now we've just got to get it on the market, and fighting with insurances to get roofs replaced is not fun. So that's that. Mr. Neck of Time asked a good question. What would it cost to move it from 51 to say 35 to 40? Kind of a difficult question to answer just because it would depend on the team that you're trading with. Kind of hard to just put to make that a broad answer. I would assume teams would initially at least ask for that 98th pick, the second pick, the one that they got in the third round from the Eagles for Kenny Pickett. I would assume that would be asked for. Maybe the Steelers can finagle their way and give away, the 119th pick, their fourth rounder. I would assume it would be something like that. I mean, you're talking about a significant jump. You're talking about jumping from the 16th pick, or not the 16th. I can't do math. The 19th pick in the second round, all the way up to the, anywhere between the third to eighth pick or seventh pick. That's a pretty significant jump. So Chris asked, what is Utah naming their new NHL team, or what do you want their name to be? I haven't even thought about that, man. I have not. I'm a huge hockey fan, but I have not even thought about what Utah should be naming their new team. Randy asks, Chris, many of us missed the reason you're moving. Can you inform us again why the move? I am moving up to Pittsburgh. I am moving up there because I have accepted a new position with DK Pittsburgh Sports, in which I will be completely taking over like the Steelers, not completely, I shouldn't say that, but I will be having a much more prominent role in the Steelers coverage, a lot like I did back during the 2022 season. But then in addition to that, I've also accepted the role of managing editor for DK Pittsburgh Sports. So I'm very excited about that, but that obviously requires a move, and that is what we were doing. The whole family is moving this time. There's no, hey, I'm going up there first and the family's coming later. Like, that's not happening again. So that's the reason why. I'm excited about it for sure. Let's see here. Let's try to get Chris B71 asks, chances of trading for Hendrickson, I would say 0.1%. Not happening. Why would they need to get Trey Hendrickson when they have Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt? Like, there's no reason to get him. None. And I don't think the Bengals would want to do business with the Steelers in terms of like, hey, here's a really, really good edge rusher. Here you go. Like, even if we were to get, even from the Bengals perspective, even if we were to get something good, like, we're still giving you you already have the best edge rusher in the league, and then a really, really good guy alongside him in Alex Highsmith. So no, that's not happening. Let's see. Stephen A says, tell him to call up Skeens. It's so funny that Paul Skeens is coming up on a Steelers podcast. Mr. CJ says, will you fire Corey for missing so many shows? No, I will not. He is working right now. He's covering the Pirates. Go easy on him because he's covering the Pirates. James Moody says, and this is interesting, because and again, this is not football related. I would love to address anything football related before we close this up. But he says, I'm bummed about the Coyotes moving. They were supposed to build a new stadium a mile from my house in Phoenix. It's interesting to me because, like, I've heard some things about, I don't know, I'm not as well educated on this as I am, so I am probably going to be wrong on some of this. But from what I've heard, or it's something along the lines of, like, anywhere where they've been wanting to build arenas for any team, especially when it comes to like the Coyotes, it's not always been in the most opportune or the best areas in the Phoenix area. And listen, like, I've been to the Phoenix area a few different times. I've covered multiple spring trainings there. I've covered the NFL annual meeting when it was there in 2023. I've been to that area. I would see certain, like, I even think like I used to cover the Rangers. So, like, I would drive all the way out to Surprise, which for nobody who knows where that is, the reason why it's called Surprise is because you have to drive northwest of Phoenix and keep driving and keep driving. And oh, surprise, there's a town out there. No, it's just like, and then while you're driving there, you just randomly pass. Oh, there's where the Cardinals play. All right, that's a little odd. You'd think it'd be a little bit closer to Phoenix, like where Chase Field is, which is in downtown Phoenix. It's interesting to me. And so like, I currently live in a market in which you would think that it's not a great hockey market. You wouldn't think Dallas would be a great hockey market. It actually is. There's not a lot of hockey fans here like there is in more obvious markets like New York, Chicago, Boston, Toronto, Montreal, like, where you would expect there to be really good hockey markets. Pittsburgh, obviously. But the fans that love hockey here, like, love hockey. And I would think that that's probably also true in Phoenix, or at least in Arizona. I'm interested to know more about that, because to me, like, if anybody's like ever asked me, like, if you wanted to see one team move and go to a different market, like, I've always thought Arizona would be the primary reason, or the primary team to possibly do that, or the prime team to possibly do that. But I could be wrong, man. There might be people in Arizona who love their hockey team. All right. Let's see. There were some questions here, and I want to get them addressed before we hop off, because we've already talked about enough non-football stuff. Let's see. Barbara asks, "Are you having a draft party, Chris?" No, we are not. At least not on here, and even here, like, I'm not having a draft party. I'm not like having a bunch of people over and to watch the draft. I'm going to be working. Like, I'm actually probably going to have the ESPN broadcast on one TV, the NFL Network broadcast on another TV, just to have everything that I could possibly watch, and then obviously be texting as many people as I possibly can to figure out. Not that I'm going to like get the scoop on like, hey, I know the Steelers are picking before anybody else does, but at least, to just be in the know on as much as I possibly can. And then obviously, like I said, helping out DK in every way that I possibly can, since he's going to be on the south side. So, no, I'll be working. I'm going to try to treat it the best I possibly can. I can't be on the south side tonight, but I'm going to try to treat it as if I am. That's just the best way to go about it. It's one of those things where, like, man, of all the things that you want to be there for, this is one of those. Let's see here. Barber comes on with another question. Would it surprise you, Chris, if Spencer Anderson beside day one center not falling for the conspiracy? We just want to ask. I don't know. Like, no, I don't think Spencer Anderson, like, to me, if it really is going to be a wide zone system under Arthur Smith, which just based on precedent, you would have to assume that, because that's what he's had in Tennessee and in Atlanta. I don't think Nate Herbig or Spencer Anderson fit that. They would have to have a very athletic guy playing in the middle. It just becomes day one. No, I don't think so. To me, it's not a good scheme fit. Neither Nate Herbig or Spencer Anderson are good scheme fits for wide zone systems. Graham Barton is. Jackson Powers Johnson is. Zach Frazier is. And Damon says, I have a feeling Spencer Anderson will be the starting center. I don't think that. I think if that's the starting center, that something went wrong in the draft / second wave of free agency / trade opportunities, anything like that. That's what I. And it's not like I'm getting a lot of questions about Spencer Anderson playing center. To me, unless the Steelers and Arthur Smith are committed to being a primarily gap / man running team, I don't see that happening. It's not a good scheme fit unless Spencer Anderson is way more athletic than I'm giving him credit for. I'm not saying he can't. He's very versatile. He's played all along the offensive line. But when you're talking about the necessary requirements for playing for a center, playing in a wide zone system, you have to be able to not only move very, very well laterally, you have to be able to move very well laterally and get to the second level in a very efficient way. Like, I don't see Nate Herbig or Spencer Anderson fitting that. I could be very, very wrong, and I could easily have to put my foot in my mouth because of that. But I don't see that working out. I would think that if the Steelers are going to run a wide zone system under Arthur Smith, it's going to have, like, the primary candidate to be your starting center would be Graham Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson, or Zach Frazier, and find a way to get one of those three guys. So, and Brian says, why all we hear is how Spencer is such a hardworking dude who is impressed. He definitely has the size. Again, it's not the size. It's about the ability to move laterally. I mean, you read up on him, you watch film on him. He seems like, if the Steelers were more of a gap running team, I have a very different answer when it comes to Spencer Anderson and Nate Herbig both. I think both guys could be maulers when it comes to gap stuff, when it comes to running duo or running power, which, by the way, I do think the Steelers still need to incorporate a bit of that. If you look at Najee's numbers running power down the stretch last year, dudes had like a 75% success rate running power, like absolutely just jamming the ball down defenses' throats on the ground when running power. A lot of questions about Spencer Anderson. Can Anderson play right tackle? You have better options right now. Again, he's a guy that I'm also very intrigued. Like, whenever I'm up there, come July and training camp starts, he's going to be one of those guys that I'm looking for. That regardless of what happens tonight or over the next 3 days, Steelers could find a way to get a tackle tonight and then trade up and get Zach Frazier in the second, and all of a sudden you're like, well, there you go. Like, took care of center, took care of tackle. I'm still going to be interested in Spencer Anderson because he is a very intriguing player. But I think that's kind of there are always going to be these players that the fans are enamored with when it comes to Spencer Anderson or Corey Trice Jr. or last year, Anthony McFarland was one. Like, definitely guys that you have to watch out for and that guys that are intriguing, but they're definitely not guys that you can just expect to be able to step into roles. If they do happen to elevate themselves into those roles, fantastic. Fills a hole that you, like, without really having to pull. You already had that guy. Like, he was already there. That's awesome. But I don't think that you can just, like, oh, we really like this guy. He's really hardworking, so we're just going to rely on him to be able to step in and expect him to do that. Like, that's not a smart way to do things. You have to be able to, like, if you have an opportunity to upgrade center right now, tonight, 19 picks are gone, 6 tackles are off the board, Cooper DeJean's off the board, Graham Barton's there, ripe for the plucking. I got to take him. Sorry. Like, that's an easy pick for me. All right. Last question. Travis says, what if you see Brian Thomas Jr. at 20? Do you pull the trigger? Depends on who else is on the board. Receiver, to me, in the first round, in such a rich receiver class, I'm not overreaching for a center the first night. If it's between Graham Barton and Brian Thomas Jr., sorry, I'm going Graham Barton. If it's Cooper DeJean or Brian Thomas Jr., I'm going Cooper DeJean. There's got to be a lot of people gone in order for me to. And again, if I had the choice between Brian Thomas Jr. at 20, or I can trade the 20th pick straight up for Brandon Aiyuk, not even a question. I'm trading for Aiyuk. Like, not even a question. That's, again, another slam dunk decision to me. So, all right. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're just about at 45 minutes. My alarm's going to be going off here in a second, which means my time is going to run out. Thank you guys so much for joining. We had a great conversation today. Great. You guys brought it with the comments. Yep, there goes my alarm. Seriously, guys, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you guys tuning into all these shows as we led up to the draft. It's been a lot of fun preparing for this draft, and I am so excited that draft is going to begin here in about a little over 4 hours, 4 hours 15 minutes, I think. So, man, I'm Favorite time of the year, man. I love it. Favorite time of the year, at least when it comes to non-NFL games. Like when NFL games aren't being played, this is my favorite NFL thing. So, so happy, so excited, ready to go, ready to rock. I'm sure you guys are going to be ready to talk about whatever happens tonight. So we'll be back tomorrow. Appreciate you guys. Much love.